Welcome into my AFC North divisional preview. I think this is the best division in the NFL. There are three teams that I view as legitimate Super Bowl contenders and another one that I think is a playoff contender. And before we get into the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also follow us on all of our social medias. You can find the links to those in the description below. So my top team in the AFC North and my fourth ranked team overall is the Baltimore Ravens. They have elite defensive personnel and we know what Lamar Jackson can do, but it feels like for the first time they've surrounded him with quality weapons. And I think the strength of this roster is the back seven. I have the Ravens ranked second at linebacker, eighth at corner, and second at safety. The Roquan Smith trade worked out better than I could have expected, and adding him to that defense actually improved Patrick Queen's level of play. And then you've got Trenton Simpson, the rookie, who probably isn't ready to play yet, but he'll be good depth. And then Marlon Humphrey's a good number one corner, Rocky Sin is a good number two, and Jalen Armour Davis and Kyu Blue Kelly will be competing for that third spot, but I think both of those are good options. And then at safety, you've got Marcus Williams, who was injured for part of last season, but he was good when he was on the field. And Kyle Hamilton was one of the best rookie defenders from last season. He played mostly in the slot, but I'm including him as a safety for these rankings. So there's high-level talent all over the back seven of this defense, and Baltimore's going to be relying on that back seven to make up for what I think their biggest weakness is, which is pass rush. On the edge, Baltimore's relying on Odafe Oweh or David Ojabo to break out and be a true number one pass rusher. Oweh hasn't been awful, but just nowhere near the level of impact that they needed from him, and it did seem like he was putting things together towards the end of the season, so hopefully the stock's up for him. And then David Ojabo, second round pick in 2022, was injured for most of his rookie season and only played 23 snaps. He did have one sack, but for this defense to live up to its potential, you need Oweh to take that next step and Ojabo to live up to his draft stock. My biggest question for the Ravens is who's going to be wide receiver one, and a question isn't necessarily a negative. I think the Ravens have a good receiving core, especially when you include the tight ends, but between Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, and this version of Odell Beckham Jr., there isn't anyone that we know can be a wide receiver one on an elite offense, and I don't think the Ravens necessarily need one of those players to step into the primary pass catching role, but if one of them can, that would raise this offense's ceiling tremendously. My breakout candidate is defensive lineman Travis Jones, third round pick last year out of Connecticut, played 340 snaps in a rotational role, and he was pretty solid when he was on the field. He wasn't a huge impact, but he did a good job shedding blocks, and I think he has Pro Bowl upside and the versatility to play nose tackle or three technique, which is really valuable, so I'm expecting a big year from Travis Jones. I think Baltimore's most underrated player is Justin Madubuike. Really improved as a pass rusher last season, and he plays with relentless motor. He is a little bit undersized, so he isn't as consistent about holding his ground as a run defender, but he's explosive, he can shoot gaps, and he plays with great leverage. So in a contract year, I could see him having a big showing. My second ranked team in the AFC North, sixth ranked team overall, is the Cincinnati Bengals, and the strength of this team is pretty obvious. It's the quarterback wide receiver duo. I have the Bengals ranked second at QB, first at wide receiver. Having Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd to throw to just makes it so much easier for Joe Burrow. I don't want to take anything away from him because I think he would have a lot of success even if he was asked to carry the offense a little bit more, but being able to sit back and shotgun and just have your choice of go routes down the sideline because you know either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, probably both, are going to beat single coverage. That's just an advantage that most quarterbacks don't have, and for the Bengals offense, it gives them a simple and repeatable way to consistently add explosive plays. The Bengals' lowest rated positional group is tight end, but thinking about what's most likely to prevent them from winning a Super Bowl, I think the clear answer is offensive line. You've got Orlando Brown Jr., who led offensive tackles and pressures allowed last season, and Jonah Williams, who led offensive tackles and sacks allowed. I think Orlando Brown Jr. is slightly underrated, but that's still a really questionable tackle duo. And then on the interior, you've got Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa. These are average players at best. So the offensive line isn't a disaster, but I think when we get into playoff football, that could be the difference. And then my biggest question for the Bengals is the secondary. On paper, they've done a good job of investing in that position through the draft, but there's a lot of new faces and a lot of players that we don't really know what they are at this point. The starting corners are Chidobe Awuzie and Cam Taylor-Britt, and I actually had Awuzie as the most underrated player on this team. I think he was playing at an all-pro level before his ACL tear last season, but you're relying on a 28-year-old corner to come back from injury at 100%, so that's a question mark. And Cam Taylor-Britt, I really liked as a prospect, and he had a great end to the season, but but he kind of had the classic rookie year for a cornerback. He got thrown into the fire, gave up some plays, but also made some plays. So he's going to have to take that next step and lock down the cornerback 2 spot. And then DJ Turner's a promising rookie, and you know what you're getting from Mike Hilton. And they lost both of their starting safeties this offseason. They were expecting to lose Jesse Bates, so that's why they drafted Dax Hill last year. And I was a huge fan of Hill coming out of Michigan, so he's going to be my breakout player. But the second safety spot, you're looking at Nick Scott or rookie Jordan Battle. And really every single position in this secondary except for Mike Hilton at nickel is a question mark. I could easily see the secondary being good enough to get the job done. We just haven't seen it yet. And it was really tough to decide on a prove-it player for the Bengals, but I went with Cordell Volson, 4th-round pick out of North Dakota State last year, and his rookie season was okay, but I think they're going to be looking for a replacement if he doesn't take a step forward. And then the Cleveland Browns are my 3rd-ranked team in the AFC North, but they're 7th overall. On paper, this is one of the most talented rosters in the league. I have them with the 2nd-ranked offensive line, 1st-ranked edge rushers, and I think their biggest strength is cornerback. Denzel Ward had probably his worst season of his career last year, but he still had 7 pass breakups and 3 interceptions, and I think he's a certified cornerback 1. Martin Emerson had 18 forced incompletions last year, which ranked 2nd among rookie cornerbacks to Sauce Gardner. And then you've got Greg Newsome, who's probably going to be moving full-time into the slot. Former 1st-round pick out of Northwestern that's been really solid ever since he got into the league. So this cornerback trio is as good as it gets for an NFL team. And they've also got rookie Cameron Mitchell, another Northwestern corner who's going to be playing behind Greg Newsome, and I think he can be some solid depth. So this defense is great on the edges, but the interior could be pretty soft, and my biggest weakness for the Browns is going to be defensive line. I do like the Dalvin Tomlinson move, so that secures 1 spot, but Jordan Elliott's been almost unplayable as a run defender. Perrion Winfrey has shown nothing, and Siaki Ika is a rookie that I wasn't a huge fan of. And this was the worst run defense in the NFL last year. They don't need to become a top 10 unit or anything. They just need to be solid enough to let the rest of the talent on this defense shine. And then the biggest question by far is Deshaun Watson. He looked like a shell of himself last year. He was holding onto the ball for too long. His accuracy was all over the place, and he wasn't nearly as elusive in the pocket as far as avoiding sacks. So I have them with a 76 quarterback ranking, which is right around average. I'm kind of banking on the 4 years of sample size that we have from Deshaun Watson of good quarterback play, but he was not an average quarterback last season, and if he doesn't bounce back, I don't think the Browns are getting close to a Super Bowl. My breakout player is going to be Elijah Moore. Hasn't had the production that you would expect for a 2nd rounder, but when you watch him on tape, the separation is there, and I think he should be the clear number 2 target for this offense. And then I went back and forth for the Browns prove-it players, but I'm just going to say mid-round draft picks. It's actually amazing how much talent is on this roster based on how little they've gotten from their day 2 draft selections. Alex Wright was an awful run defender last year. David Bell, only 214 receiving yards. Perrion Winfrey has off-field issues, and he wasn't good when he was on the field. They haven't gotten anything from Anthony Schwartz. Even JOK has been a little bit inconsistent. And then I think Grant Delpit also needs to put together a complete season. So you could really take your pick from any of these mid-round players. They just need a couple of these guys to step up and be consistent contributors. And then at 18, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their biggest strength, as always, is wide receiver. Diontae Johnson's one of the best separators in the NFL, and George Pickens, who's going to be my breakout player, had a great rookie season, but I think he could take another step forward if he tightens up his route running. He has the athleticism and movement skills to do that. And then Allen Robinson, I honestly have no idea what to expect from him, but you could do a lot worse than that for your 3rd receiver. The biggest weakness for the Steelers, I think, is offensive line. I really like the Broderick Jones pick, but I think he has a ways to go to become a high-quality pass protector in the NFL. And then they added Isaac Samalo. They've got Mason Cole at center, James Daniels at right guard, and Chuka Okorafor at right tackle. Pretty similar to the Bengals, where I don't think this is a terrible offensive line, but they're just going to get beat at a higher rate than most lines across the league, and over time, that's going to result in a less efficient offense. I also think as a whole, they need to improve their run blocking. Najee Harris has not really been given much space to work with since he got into the NFL. And then my biggest question for the Steelers is cornerback. It's kind of similar to offensive line, where they have a highly drafted rookie where if he hit the ground running, that could make a huge difference, but we don't know that Joey Porter Jr. is going to be good immediately. And then outside of that, you've got Patrick Peterson, who had an incredible season last year for his age, but he's 33 years old. Levi Wallace is solid, and then James Pierre, I know a lot of Steelers fans like, but he hasn't even played a full season's worth of snaps for his career, so it's hard for me to put too much faith in him. Pittsburgh's most underrated player is edge rusher Alex Highsmith. Somewhat of a breakout season last year, 55 pressures and 15 sacks. He's got a deadly spin move, and he's the ideal number 2 pass rusher alongside TJ Watt. And then my prove it player is going to be DeMarvin Leal. You could have easily went with Calvin Austin, but Leal was a 3rd round pick last year, didn't see the field too much and didn't make much of an impact when he was on the field. And he'll have some opportunities this year, but the Steelers are continuing to invest in that defensive line, and he's going to have to prove that he's part of the future. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments any NFL players or teams that you'd like me to cover.